Hello and welcome to the British Strength Podcast, the only podcast on earth hosted by the only 3 British citizens ever to be ordained as starting strength coaches. I am Jack Bissett, that is Carl Ragavan, and that is Byron Johnston. And today we are going to talk about all the different ways that people fuck up their novice linear progression. Buckle up, kids, because this is going to be a long one. There's a lot of different ways that people screw this up. I've got a list here, and I think these two also have lists, but right up there, ingrained into the memory. But I'll get it going by starting with being greedy. Lots of you out there get way too greedy with your weight jumps, especially at the start. You see in the blue book, or you hear Rip mention it on YouTube or something, that those first couple of sessions, maybe you can add 10 or 20 pounds to your squat and to your deadlift right out of the gate. That is true, but that only lasts for a week or two. And I see people trying to add, 10 kilos to their squat 6-8 weeks into their program and hitting a hard fucking wall. It's because you're getting greedy, my friend. You're getting way too greedy with those weight jumps, slamming way too much weight onto the bar too quickly, and inevitably what happens when you do that? Your form goes to shit. You start rounding your back on your deadlift, your squats start getting higher and higher because you've bitten off more than you can chew. This is a mistake I see loads of people making in the gym, on the forums, when people message me and talk to me and troubleshoot on Instagram. I see it all the time, is people getting way too greedy with their weight jumps. Do you guys see a lot of this out there in the NLP world?
Yeah, I think the other thing, the opposite can happen as well, is too smaller jumps when they could be progressing at a more optimal rate. So that's possible too. If people think, oh, I'll just load by, the fear creeps in, I'll just go half a kilo at a time or something like that. And I'm like, no, we need to drive this a little bit harder so you can take it the other way.
I also think
I see that.
There's another one which is a really bad problem for, again, usually those kind of hypochondriac perfection type of people, is forever doing a reset. So they'll add 2.5 kilos, a little bit. And then the minute the bar gets uncomfortable, because now there's a little bit more weight on the bar, and sometimes it just has to be a number. If it's like their first 100 kilo squat, they've gone from 80, they've even done it perfectly, 2.5 kilos every time, 100 kilos on the bar. And then their mentality changes because they've got that 2 plates on the bar, and they're so in their head. They're not just focusing on crushing 3 sets of 5. They're so in their head, and they kind of create this self-doubt. And then they just go right back to 80 kilos again. And then we're back in this forever reset, rewash. And those people never run the program right either. That's a big problem with kind of starting strength people, thinking that the magic is staying on the track, even if that track is just going around in a loop. The train is getting to a destination, right? This isn't a monorail, right? Where we're going somewhere. We're going from 80 to 100, then to 120, 140 and beyond. And dealing with that fear, that doubt, some reps could be a little messy, 1 or 2 a little high. That happens. You come back next week and look at your logbook and like, oh yeah, that last set, those last 2 reps were high. I'm going to add weight and I'm going to fucking nail depth. That's how training goes sometimes. And those perfection seekers who always need to get 3 sets of 5 perfect reps. And it looks like if we were coaching them, we'd be like, what are you doing with your warm up? Put more weight on the bar. Those people, but it feels so heavy. And it's like, no, it ain't. So those people who are forever resetting are also a real problem child of starting strength, because they think that they need to be on this program forever. And that isn't how you get strong either.
Yeah, you see, I've certainly run into people who will be on their 4th or their 5th reset. Listen very clearly now. I know that in the books it says that a reset is a tool you can use. Once you get 1 reset. All right, if you're on your 5th reset, it's time to give up the ghost, friends. And I've I've met several people who screw up the micro-loading as well, right? So we're all big fans of micro-loading here. We recommend buying the small fractional plates so you can add a kilogram at a time to your pressing movements. Note what I said there, to your pressing movements. I've met a lot of people who will micro-load their squat and their deadlift, all right? Towards the end of LP, you're maybe only deadlifting once a week, right? If you are micro-loading that, you are making less progress doing a micro-loaded LP on your deadlift than you would if you just switched to intermediate programming and made 2.5 kilo jumps again, okay? A little 1 kilo jump is not enough stress. It's not a big enough percentage of the total weight to disrupt anything. You're creeping forward at an incredibly slow rate. Do not micro-load your lower body lifts. I'd say that is maybe more rare than people who won't micro-load their upper body and are trying to constantly jam 2.5, 5 kilos on their press and their bench, but I've seen it happen enough time for me to bring it up. So I'd say that's the three big ways that people would mess up the loading of their lifts is messing up the micro-loading with the upper body, trying to micro-load the lower body, or just constantly running resets. When you think about anything else that people get, I mean, people can get really autistic about that loading, trying to like weigh the individual plates and stuff. It's unhealthy, unhinged behavior. Don't do that.
No, don't do that. Don't do it. Yeah, don't do that to yourself.
But you said something when you were talking about the reset there, Carl, where people reset sometimes out of fear because they get to a weight and they're like, oh, that was hard. And probably is actually the first hard set they've ever done. And that is a mistake I see a lot as well, is when you get that first hard set, you panic and you think, oh shit, the game's over. NLP has come to its end because I'm not cruising anymore, particularly on the deadlift. There will come a point on the deadlift where you will start pushing and it will not leave the floor instantaneously. And a lot of people at that point will give up the rep entirely, give up the set entirely.
My favorite is watching someone barely lift the first rep, and on deadlift especially, and then the second, third, fourth, fifth rep is like that, and you're just like, what the fuck happened? I thought they were going to miss by rep 2. And I think especially what you just said about the deadlift is because it starts on the floor and is concentric first, whereas most of the other lifts, you have the bar loaded in your hands, either pressing or benching or the squat. You're loaded and then you lower the weight down eccentrically and then you spring back up with the concentric. The deadlift is so much harder because you have none of that stretch reflex. You can't replicate an eccentric on a deadlift when it starts correctly, which is a dead, motionless weight off the floor that you have to then pick up. Instantly clicking into a concentric, that really is tough for the nervous system to kind of get on board. And when you're new, applying force and pulling the slack out of the bar is a real skill. And like you just said, that emergency result is if you've never pushed on a bar for 5 seconds, which is a long time, 5 seconds. I've had this problem on deadlift as well. Sometimes I'll have people count to 5 seconds when I start pulling, and most of the time I'll actually be done by 3. But in my head, if I was to deadlift by myself and struggle with that rep, I would have thought I was at 7 or 8 seconds. But when you hear 1, 2, 3, it's already locked out, and you're like, holy, I wasn't even pulling for 5 seconds. I thought it was 8 or 9 seconds. What the hell's going on?
Yeah. I think this is where, for those of you who are out there training without coaches, where filming your lifts can come in useful. For your squats and for your deadlifts especially, you can finish a set and think to yourself, that was the most appalling grind I've ever had in my entire life. I've never felt anything like that before. I think I'm going to die. I definitely can't do another set. And then you watch the clip back and you watch that set of squats back, and you're just going beep, 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 just up and down, straight, easy. There's no slowing down in the bar speed. If you know, most people who are going through their NLP are total beginners. They've not been in the weight room before. They've not touched weights before. And so they don't know what it feels like to push, to grind, to really get your teeth stuck into something. And so the second they feel any sort of resistance to their effort, they can lose their shit completely. And I think, recording at least one of your sets is a good way to get around that, because you can watch it back and verify that actually it moved real well. Especially then if you've got a backlog of videos. So here's the videos I did on Monday, and now here on Wednesday, here's this video. Oh, and they look exactly the same. The weight is moving exactly the same way. That can help to put that sort of fear to bed, so that you can get on with the business of actually lifting some weight and getting strong.
I would also argue, if you're in a strong lifting cultured gym, this is kind of the negative of being in a home gym. You'll be surprised if a couple of people, it may only be one or two people, if a couple of people are cheering for you when you're doing a heavy set of 5, you'll be surprised at how much stronger you'll be. I know not everyone's like that. Some people just want to train in silence and, just be like that. But I've found for myself, no one's on my program. Wherever I'm training, I'm always doing my own thing. I'm not training with a team. But being around people, even if they're not strong, they're just people that love being in the gym and training. But especially if you're around strong people, if they're saying, come on, Carl, and like up, or whatever they're screaming at me, yeah, let's go. It does help. Even though they're not like coaching me, just a few rah-rah screams, it jet fuels me, and I'm like ready to kill when that happens. So you'll be surprised what having a few friends around can do for training there, because it will get hard. We're going to guarantee the weight is going to scare you and get heavy, but that's not a problem, because you've had this. Again, is the crux of the mistake, is thinking that somehow if you're lifting with perfect technique, eating enough, resting enough, dotting all your I's, crossing your T's, there's this thought that I'll never reach my ceiling if I'm doing everything perfectly. And that's the complete opposite. What we're doing is we're setting you up for that day that's going to challenge and scare you. And instead of you have nothing tangible to have in your arsenal, in your tool belt, you've had 6 to 12 weeks of training with lighter weights. And if you look at your training log, you've got all these days where you didn't miss a single rep and you did everything by the book. And now 6 to 12 weeks later, you've now got this really challenging rep. What the fuck do? The thing we've been telling you to do the whole time, right? Focus on the reps, do all the things that we're telling you, because we've set you up to be ready for this challenging day. And it's going to come for every lifter. There is a weight which scares everyone, and that's completely fine. But instead of think, oh, there's a load of plates on the bar, how can I do this? Well, it's like, well, you've been doing this for 12 weeks. Just add a teeny bit more. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, I think there are people out there who will mistake those early weeks, where you're starting out and you're still new, you're still fresh, you're still learning the technique, and so the weight really isn't that heavy.
No respect given.
Yeah, and so they can sort of roll in, not put in that much effort, not focus that much on what they're doing, and because it's not that heavy, they can get by just fine. Their technique is still pretty good, because the weight isn't challenging them, and they've got a coach stood over them, yelling over their shoulder, and that can lull people into a sort of false sense of security, where they think, well, shit, if I'd known strength training was going to be this easy, I would have been doing this for years. But that will change, that the weight adds up very, very quickly. And before long, you'll be squatting over 100. Within 3 months, usually most men are knocking on the door of 3 plates on their back squat if they haven't hit that already. Then it starts to get hard. Then things start to slow down, and you suddenly realize that the lackadaisical approach that you were taking at the start won't hold up anymore. You can't just roll in and not pay attention and put in about 60% of your effort. You actually have to dig in, switch on, and try hard. And for some people, that can freak them out and cause them to try and want to stamp on the brakes. They can start to, I've seen it a couple of times where people get to what they perceive to be as their first grind. It's not a grind, it's just the first time that their bar speed has maybe slowed down, and they panic and their technique goes to shit.
Yeah.
They go into fight or flight mode, and suddenly they're not focusing on, keep my chest down, drive my hips. They're focusing on, oh fuck, oh shit, I've got to get up any way I possibly can. And you can see some really weird shit happen when people panic like that. That's fine, I think. That's part of the learning experience. But if you let that stop you there, you're never gonna get strong. You're never gonna get strong. And certainly if you let the technique start to slide, then if you're thinking, oh, this set of squats, it's kind of scary. I know the last set was maybe just a little bit high, but it's close enough. Within another 3 weeks, you'll be doing half squats.
Yes.
And at which point you are not doing the program anymore. You've let that technique go to shit because you're afraid. That is not the program. That is not what we're teaching, and that is not going to get you any stronger.
Yeah. There's definitely concerns around some structural things that people can not put in place or put in place, think they shouldn't, and they implement something, and so it can either way. They can get in their own way. So I think step one when you're going into this is to just realize this is a serialized group of workouts you're going to be doing. Okay, they progress in this fashion, and you're doing a thing. Okay, you're doing a sort of formulated process, and you need to commit to that. Otherwise, as Jack said, the first day it goes from you coasting to, that slowed down. You'll start telling yourself reasons that, maybe that means we need to stop here. Maybe we should do something else. The excuses can start coming in and derailing you, when actually that's a completely normal part of the process. You hit that sort of level, that's where your coach leads you through that into the next development of it. But when people don't have that, they feel like, well, I've been doing strength training for a few weeks now, and now I'm definitely stronger than I was. And then the day comes, it gets like that level of difficulty starts creeping in. That week it starts to happen, then maybe 2 weeks. And they can say to themselves, well, I did the thing. I've done enough of this now. I can now give myself permission to go and do something else because I did this much of it. I've attempted this now. They can, before the programs come to an end, in the novice sense of things.
I've got a great story.
Cowardice.
Yeah.
That's cowardice.
Well, I've got a great story. So this was 2012. This was the Q&A after a seminar. First time I went to the States ever, going to Wichita Falls. It was kind of funny because I didn't have a car. I thought I could get around on the public buses and stuff. I ended up, the first time I went to the gym, I was walking on the highway to get to the gym. I should have got pulled over by the cops or something. Funny thing is, the two first people I met on the street were two little Mormon kids trying to tell me about being a Mormon is great, and all this kind of stuff. And, the experience of the seminar was great. And I thought I was an intermediate. So come to the end of the Q&A, my question was an intermediate programming question, right? Bearing in mind, I was 70 kilos and my deadlift that day was 315, so 140 kilos for a set of 5. Someone who's 70 kilos, deadlifting 315 is not bad, right? I thought I was an intermediate. And when I said an intermediate question, Rip clocked me and he turned around and says, "You're not an intermediate, you're a novice." And forever that stood in my head. I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, my numbers on paper and this and that. And I just thought for myself, like, I've done the program, but what I didn't realize was eating and being a certain body weight is part of the program. And lo and behold, fast forward a few years later to now, I'm overhead pressing more than 315, right? So he was right. Going from 70 to 120 kilos, that was an extreme. Probably I only needed to get to 95, 100 kilos at my height. But gaining 20 to 30 kilos was the missing ingredient that so many people on doing starting strength don't give enough time and respect for. You may not gain it at a certain speed, but that's okay. But it needs to be in the conversation, just like technique and just like programming. People love to argue so long about how many sets and reps and all this and that. But when it comes to body weight, instantly you're jeopardizing their abs and their physique. Heaven forbid that's part of the process. And those people will forever be mediocre and weak for their potential, right? It's not saying you can't be strong at lighter body weights. You can, obviously. But if you're focusing on getting as strong as humanly possible for you, gaining a serious amount of body weight, which is lean muscle mass, right? We're not just saying become a fat turd. We're talking about muscle here, right? And for some reason, it can just not compute that body weight is inbuilt and baked into the program. Gaining weight, adding more food into your diet is almost redundant, because so many people, it just goes over their head. And those people are forever picking up stones that they've looked under before. Is it 3 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 3? Did I have REM sleep for 6 hours, or did I have REM sleep for 8 hours? Did I take this supplement, or did I do this right? And it's just like, it's standing right in your face. You're underweight, right? If you're competing and you're looking to be in a weight class, different story. But this is just a normal bloke or female who want to get strong. You need to add muscle, and putting down more food, the right kind of food, is part of the program. And, the sooner you get on board with that, then we can start making more progress again. Because so many times the wheels stop turning because that person is under eating.
So,
Oh, sorry,
go on,
Jeff,
Byron,
go
go on.
ahead. Thank you. That's kind. Okay, so it's about association. When you start this process, you're gonna go from someone who has not been a strength person or a barbell person into this kind of new world. Even if you've done a little bit of it, it's gonna change in terms of the formulation that we use. But the thing that Carl was talking about that really kind of lit up to me was that up until now, your relationship with food has probably been like, oh, it's breakfast, I have breakfast. It's lunch, I have lunch. Or I'm hungry, I eat when hungry. And what we're talking about is none of those things need to apply anymore. You don't need to be hungry to eat. Like your thing with, I'm hungry, so I have some food. You can disassociate away from that, because our relationship with food is, we enjoy it, and we will eat at the meal times, but I no longer need to be hungry to know I need to fuel my body. So now it's more like a predestined set of steps I'm going to follow, and I can eat comfortably by having the kind of portions that I'm having throughout the day. I don't feel overwhelmed with food, but I don't necessarily associate the need to feel hungry to indicate that I should eat something anymore. In fact, when I was going through like phases of surplus, I rarely felt hungry. It was often a nice thing to feel hungry, which happened once in a blue moon, but generally wasn't hungry, for weeks at a time.
I would argue that statement even further. If you're waiting to get hungry when you're gaining weight, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, you're
not doing it right.
Yeah.
There should be a very few moments where I don't see something in your gob. That is how much you should be eating, right? And I remember Jack talking about the gallon of milk diet. Right. So a common mistake is thinking everyone on starting strength does a gallon of milk. That's wrong. That's bullshit. But it can apply. And there was a situation when I was working double shifts where it worked, because I basically was coaching mornings, lunch and evenings. And I also had PT. So from 6 till 9, I was basically at the gym all day. So putting down regular meals, a couple of meals, 2 or 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. But for the rest of that time, I was swigging milk while coaching, because I needed those calories, because I was serious about gaining weight. So if you're in a time crunch, I always say to people, if you don't have time, liquid calories are your friend. And if you want to make your own protein shake with peanut butter, bananas, and all the rest of it, oats, perfect, whatever. If you have enough time to grill your own steak in your house, even amazing still. But there are situations where you may fall into, I have less time, so I've got to swig more liquid calories, or I've got more time so I can prepare and have more home cooked meals. Neither variation is wrong. The bottom line is, did you hit your quota every day? We didn't say, did you wait to be hungry? Did you eat your 200 grams of protein? Did you have X amount of calories that day? The other way you can tell that training's going well is you're not cramping, you're not missing lifts. You know, all these things, even just having enough salt in your diet can make a big difference, or having electrolytes. People just don't understand that that is the nutrition game we're playing. We're not waiting to wait for a chicken salad or this and that, because that's not the part of the program. And the best part about it is, when you have pushed yourself to eat more than you want, losing weight is so easy, because you just got to strip back a few liquid meals or things like this, change maybe some of your cuts of meat to go from more higher fat to lower fat meats, and, you know, play around with maybe choosing different alcohol options if you drink, having one or two less desserts, and boom, like, so much weight is going to drop off, and you didn't even have to do anything else. You just manipulated a small lifestyle change.
Well, I think, you know, that all of that sort of ties into that same sort of casual approach to the NLP, which is to think falsely that it is simply a 3 days a week exercise plan.
That's it.
Right? It's not an exercise plan, it's a training plan, but it's not even that, right? It's strength as a lifestyle, right? Eating is part of the program. Sleeping is part of the program. You can, you go in on your Monday session and you absolutely bust your hump, right? And you have a great hour in the gym, you hit all your lifts. That is great. And I am thrilled. And you should keep doing that. If you don't go home and eat, you're missing half of it. You're missing half of the whole equation. And, you know, I get on people's asses about this all the time, people I'm coaching, because I keep, for almost all of them, and especially at the start, I keep an eye on their calories. When they get a bit more experience and I can trust them to do their own thing, I maybe only check in once a month on their calories or whatever. But at the start, I'm watching you like Anne Hawke, okay? And the reason I'm doing that is because, you're 8 weeks in, you're training, things are a little bit difficult now, and I check your calories and you're like, oh yeah, I had my 2,000 calories yesterday. I had my, 160, 180 grams of protein. That's my RDA for my body weight and all the rest of the shit. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, but you need to eat more. And inevitably, the question I'll get back is, well, I made my lifts. I made my lifts today. I squatted, I pressed, I deadlifted, I got, I ticked all the boxes. I did everything I needed to do today. Why do I need to eat more? I feel pretty good. And the answer to that question is that you've got to lift more next time. And then you've got to lift more the time after that. This food stuff has a sort of delayed effect, right? Like, I want you eating 3,000 calories now because I know in 3 weeks' time you've got to squat 3 plates. And the diet you're eating right now will not get you there. You're going to crash and burn before you reach that point. And, I see it all the time. And inevitably then, to the people who don't heed my advice, they crash and they burn and they peter out, and I knock the calories up, and then the following week, hey, all the numbers are rolling again. Did I change the programming? No. Was there a change in the technique? No. We just added more calories. And so, it's better to get ahead of that, to eat for the lifts that you're going to have to make next week and the week after that, than it is to roll into those weeks underfed, to crash and to burn, and then to have to, do a little reset and eat your way back up the ladder. But it is, as Carl and Byron have both said, that it's It's your life. It's not just 3 gym sessions. This is it now. This is you. This is your whole entire life now. Welcome
Yeah.
to the gym.
Training is the tip of the iceberg. Coming in and doing that is just the tip. Below the surface is where real progress made, and that is what you just said. The food, the sleep, doing everything after, because the gym is only maximum 2 hours of the day. If you're really doing a very hard program, then you may be someone who has to have a 2-hour workout because you just got loads of rest periods. But when you're brand new to lifting, it's a 40-minute job. So that's the other thing, is like, if initially you come in nonchalant, you're crushing numbers. Every week you see it stack up and you're only doing 40-minute sessions. Awesome, keep that going. But eventually, as training gets more experience and you get stronger on the bar, you have to have more rest periods, more time. Even then, at the highest level, 2 hours, it's a 24-hour day. So the other 22 hours is where you make the real success. And that's stuff I write about in articles, is the more I focus on the outside factors in the gym, the more success I get now, even on my programming and my strength. It's all about doing the stuff outside the gym that makes the progress in the gym.
Well, you know, I don't think I've told this story before, but I'm not sure I've told it on here. The best training block of my entire life was the first lockdown. Right. I had some kit at home that I could train in. I had a shitload of weight and a bar that I'd nicked from the gym. I had some dumbbells and some bands and some stuff. But I didn't have a rack or a bench. Right. So I was doing front squats and Zercher squats. I was doing all my overhead presses had to be cleaned before I could press them, and all I could do was floor press that was sort of rolled over me and then floor pressed. And I could do dips off the back of chairs with like dumbbells held between my feet. And I still ended up almost the strongest I've ever been, because every single night for that first lockdown, I slept 10 hours because there was nothing to do. I didn't have anything to get up for. I didn't have anything to stay up for because there was no one to see. I slept 10 hours a night, every single night. I ate the same meals every single day for, what was that first lockdown? 3-4 months. I'd go shopping once a week. I'd buy in all my groceries, and it would be, eggs for breakfast, chicken for lunch, beef for dinner, big thing of like protein yogurt for dessert in the evening, protein shake on top of that, 5 meals throughout the day, ding ding ding, at the same times, 10 hours of sleep every night, 10,000 steps a day, and then training like a fucking savage in the garden because it's all it's all I had to spend my energy on, and it was incredible. I think about it all the time. But that training block was so good because the recovery was so dialed in. From the stress, from the training point of view, it was suboptimal, right? I couldn't really get very heavy squats going on because I had to clean front squats, or I had to awkwardly get Zerchers into place. My pressing was a bit screwed up. My benching was floor press. It's like there were a lot of compromises I had to make there, but it was made up for by the fact that my sleep and my diet were 10 out of 10 and consistent like that for months. So if you've not got that stuff at least some way dialed in, you are not going to get the best out of your NLP. And if you ignore it completely, you're just totally fucking it up. I would say you're not even doing the NLP at that point. So, so far we've talked about loading, messing up loading. We've talked about your attitude coming into the gym and coming into your sessions. We've talked about your recovery. I think another big mistake that people make is people think they know better than us. They think they know better than Rip. They think they know better than Andy Baker and the millions of people at this point that have been coached and have run through this program as written, and they try and modify it themselves. Well, this is great, guys. The NLP is working really nice, but I'd just like some more arms. I just think I want more legs. I want more back. I think, these 5s are good, but what if after the 5s, I threw in some 10s. All this
The
sort of shit.
add-ons.
Yeah, the add-ons, the extra stuff,
Calf
The
raises,
program, yeah, the
lateral
program's
side,
working.
lateral shoulder raises, all that.
There's no deltoid work in this program. There's no direct deltoid work.
What about abs,
Stuff
Jack?
like
What
that.
about the abs? There is no sit-ups or crunches in this program.
I think part of where this issue comes from is, again, those first couple of weeks, because it's easy.
Yeah.
You roll in, you do your 3 sets of 5 on everything, you do your deadlifts, you're done in 45 minutes, and you're like, well, I actually
do
feel
football.
pretty good. I've got some energy left.
Cycling.
I could just throw in some extra stuff. I could go and do some abs. I could go and hit some rows and hit the leg press a bit, just to get a quick burn at the end. The reason none of that stuff is in the program is, 1, because it doesn't do anything productive for you, and 2, as the weight gets heavier, that is going to actively take away from the main stuff. When you're at the end of LP, like the actual end of LP, and your eyes are bulging through your skull to try and get the 5th rep up of that last set, and your veins are all, popping on your head, you've got a turd this far away from breaching your asshole as you're trying to come up out of the bottom of the squat. You're not going to rack that bar and then think, yeah, I need some leg presses now. I need hamstring curls. It's all unnecessary fluff.
Tries,
yeah,
baby.
gotta hit my
Tries, baby.
tries. And I think the other sort of flip side to adding on all this extra stuff is the skipping of things, and I think we all know what we're talking about when I say that.
Yeah, I think the people who are looking at the program, because I remember Byron said this in a previous podcast, when you look at the program, you're kind of looking at it like, is that it? 3 lifts? You just want me to squat, press, deadlift, and then squat, bench, deadlift, and then maybe we'll add power cleans, and maybe we'll add chins, but that's it? 3 lifts? That's what we're doing? It's like, yeah, that's it. And it's going to be fucking hard. And again, it just goes to show the lack of training knowledge, because you don't need arms when you're pressing 100 kilos for a set of 5, or if you're doing sets of 10 on chin-ups at a body weight that's increasing every month. If you're getting heavier and you're doing sets of 10 on chin-ups, your arms will grow. So again, it's just that lack of understanding. And even for myself, even now at the more advanced strength level, I'm still fighting that urge to stay Spartan and minimalist. The only times I'll start plugging in abs, arms, bullshit crap is primarily because I can't do enough weight on the prime lifts, which is how I'd like to train. So if you have a situation where you have an injury or you're working around stuff, if you're pressing a shit ton of weight, your arms are going to look just fine. Trust me on that. But if you're someone who's come back from an injury or this and that, that's when machines and arms and abs and all this stuff can maybe have some room in the program, but that is not a forever. That lift has a shelf life. And again, this is something Ripper said, and I've experienced this myself and with clients. Let's just say you run up dumbbell curls or even a barbell curl. You run it for 3 weeks, and then what happens? By week 4, you can't get 3 sets of 12 anymore, right? There's a reason why 5s work so well, is because you can stack weeks and weeks of progress where we don't need to change anything. Whereas if you're doing 3 sets of 12 on curls or different exercises, that's only going to last for 4, 5, maximum 6 weeks. And then what? You have to change it. So you're moving the goalposts, thinking that you're getting some sort of new replenished gains, but it's like, no, you've had to move the goalposts, because now you're going from incline curls to barbell curls to preacher curls to spider curls, and you kind of got to mix and match and do all this weird stuff. And when you look at the grand scheme of things, you could have just done a set of chin-ups and deadlifts and you're fine. But our brain is so wired to think variety is part of training, which is the complete opposite to what we know works and is effective, which is actually doing the same things and just incrementally adding over time. And that again, it just blows people's minds. And I wish that stuff did work, because from a programming perspective, we would have a lot more work on our hands, and it would make training, like, it would give us a reason to like keep clients happy, because that's what they think is going to make the wheel go. And it's like, no, just deadlifts is going to make your back bigger, and chin-ups. That's all you need. Deadlifts and chin-ups. I don't want to give a shit about rows or arms, because 10 years from now, that's what's going to happen. You want the deadlift and the chin up. Those are your prime lifts. Rows, arms, abs, that's going to come and go with different situations, but it's not the foundation, the pillars of training. And the crazy part is, and this has been proven in science for years, if your squat goes up, everything gets bigger, including your arms. So if your squat goes up, everything's going to grow. It's such a systematically powerful lift that it just enhances your whole being. So what that says is your muscles, they unite in concert just by training your biceps. That sure, you're going to get a little bit of growth, but the squat is going to make everything grow. And I don't know about most people, but I want to be investing my time in things that have the most bang for my buck. And yeah, 2%, 5% of training should be all that bullshit fluff. But the rest, you already know. And unfortunately, for the most people, they can't wrap their head around that, because then they have no excuses, right? Because the program is set. But what we've already established is it's the other 22, 23 hours of the day that you need to get your ducks in a row.
Well, I think the all these add-ons, all these distractions can often be used as a way, kind of like the resets, to let people off the hook for the heavy shit that they know they should be doing, right? Because I agree with you 100%, but heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, heavy chin-ups, they're really hard. They're hard, they're difficult, they're uncomfortable. And rows are easier. The lat pull down is easier. The leg press is easier. You can kind of trick yourself into thinking, well, no, I'm working hard here. I've got a sick burn after my 12 leg presses. That's hard work, right? But it's not the same. Mentally, psychologically, physically, it's not the same, and it does not have the same result. Another way that people can dodge the work like that is going too early onto an intermediate program, right? Like they've got maybe another 6 weeks of LP left, which are the hardest 6 weeks, but also the most fruitful. And oh no, I think now's the time for a 4-day split, and the weights get reset a little bit and everything gets spread out. And now I'm cruising on my 4-day split, and it's nice. And, that horrible, difficult, hard month at the end of LP, I've kind of skipped past that because I'm an intermediate now,
The program hopper.
Yeah, people can do that, the same sort of thing, to try and dodge the really difficult but ultimately the most productive work out of the NLP or any training plan, really.
Yeah, so for me, I've seen that so many times, time and time again, is people want to switch, especially like we said on the deadlift. They're deadlifting every session and they're complaining that it's getting hard, but you watch the film and it's like dink, 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 and you're like, you just need to shut up and stop being a bitch. You're good. And they just don't realize how much strength and benefits they're getting from doing 3 days a week deadlift. Bob Santana has an article about that. And of course, when it comes to manipulating program, we are going to dial in to you when it's appropriate. But we don't want to pull that lever immediately when training gets hard, because there are only so many levers we can pull. And then when they're all done, then what happens? Then we got nothing. So we want to make changes as little as we can, and facing these numbers that scare you or difficult, or the weight moves slow, or I just don't, or you just build the idea in your head that I think now I've deadlifted 3 days a week for long enough because I know my body and I think I'm ready to go into the next phase. And it's like, no, we as coaches have a better idea of where you are down the road. Regardless of how much you've read, you haven't experienced this, which is what we've all done. We've been through the process and we've made all these mistakes. And rather than repeat our mistakes, we want you to continue progressing as fast as you can. Yeah, sure. Maybe some people can get up to 140 kilo squat before they go into a light day. But maybe for you, you may have to do 1 day a week deadlifting when you're at 90 kilos, because doing 3 days a week, adding weight to the bar, you're rounding like this, and it's just getting worse and worse, affecting other lifts for one scenario. And it's like, well, actually, I don't want you pulling from the floor heavy 3 days a week because your situation says otherwise. So it always boils down to the individual of how you're going to like manipulate those dials. Just because RIP or some other source has said this, it's not that this is the gospel in stone method of how you're going to progress from starting strength into a light day, into heavy light medium, and then you're in a full-blown intermediate. Yeah, if in a perfect world, because this is the thing, right? When you read the books and when you go through practical programming, the idea is that that person's technique is solid, right? That's a given. So then when you start making programming changes, we've already known that that person's technique is solid. Whereas 9 times out of 10, the reason I'm making programming changes is because your technique sucks, right? That's why I'm doing pause squats or tempo bench or strict press, right? I'm doing those lifts because your form is shit and we can't progress at this pace because everything is going out like a car crash, right? So I can only program as best as I can for you, right? If I can just make you squat, bench, deadlift, press, nothing changes, all the lifts are the same tempo, let's go. But that's not how it works with a normal novice beginner lifter. It just doesn't.
Yeah. To that end, I think it's useful for someone who wants to get into this and start this program to think, just look logically at your diary. If you are about to move house, don't like start 2 weeks of NLP. Oh, then I'll just move house and then it's not like something you want to sort of just, I got that month in Europe traveling, but it'll be fine. You really want to have a nice clean run at this, all the way through, properly committed. When you've got that consistency, that is kind of an optimal way to do it. And I don't know if people sort of think this is, again, if they've only known exercise classes where you drop in and, well, maybe this week I'll do the spin class or it's not like that. It's like you want to kind of like really block this out and give it your absolute all, because the more you give it, the more that you'll get out of it. That's absolutely the thing about this. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah. I think the only thing I've got left on my list that we haven't touched on, the only other way that people mess up the program is by leaving things out of it, and specifically, that's the power clean. Sometimes people skip their chin-ups as well.
You know, a lot of coaches leave out the power clean as well.
Carl Ragavan, I could make no comment about that whatsoever. I'm still wet behind the ears. I've not met enough starting strength coaches to comment on that. When Carl was telling that story about the gym in the last episode, his trip to Wichita Falls in 2012, when he was telling that story, I still hadn't done my GCSEs. I'm a child.
2012, man.
But I would say most people left out there in the wild with a copy of the Blue Book and a plan for the NLP will skip the power clean.
Oh, yeah.
Because they can't be asked to learn it. I would say the reason people skip cleans is because cleans are hard to learn, especially if you're doing it on your own, and it's not perhaps as immediately apparent why you should be doing cleans as compared to the other lifts. And so people maybe give it a go. They go, oh, well, these look like shit. I can't do them. What's the point anyway? Fuck this. I'm gonna do barbell rows. Which I think is really another form of just skipping the hard stuff.
Yes.
Byron, defend the
Yeah.
clean. Defend the
Yeah.
clean's honor.
Yeah, so hang on. Before I go into that, I think what's more important to talk about is getting into why people struggle with it and what to do about that, because that's really what we want to do is help people get the most out of their NLP and not fall into this problem. So the first recommendation I would make is when you're going to put the power clean in, don't worry about it. Don't just immediately discount it and say, "Oh, I just won't do it." Keep an open mind to it. And no matter where you are, find a coach. Yeah, find a coach. There's SSCs. Anyone listening to this, there must be an SSC near you. Okay, or another reputable, decent barbell coach. If you can't get a starting
There are
strength
none.
coach,
There are none.
Jack, goddammit, let me finish. Don't ruin this moment for me, Jack. Finding someone who has, done enough. I know you guys have done a bit more Olympic stuff than I have. Finding someone who would be good enough to just get you in on a power clean and get stuck into that. All right. Because I think one of the issues is when people are trying to do it themselves, as you pointed out, it is difficult and it doesn't feel like it's not a lift that can be done slowly, and it feels quite different when people are trying to accelerate that thing and it's flying through the air. So I understand that. And so I think the quickest way to dissolve that problem is get with a coach, because then learning it is very straightforward. I've taken loads of people through it all the time. I get at least 1 or 2 dropping in a month where I can build it in. And if it's one of my clients who I'm coaching remotely, I'll try to rendezvous with them so we can do it together in person. That's my approach for it. What do you guys think of that?
For
Yeah,
me,
absolutely solid.
I think it's kind of hilarious because on the one hand, you'll have a lifter who proclaims that they can't do power cleans and they'll sub out barbell rows, but there'll be the same person who'll say that they need to do specific grip training for their jiu-jitsu. And it's like, look, if you're jumping into a sport, especially, you want to be big, strong, and powerful. And doing a power clean really isn't that difficult. And if a power clean, the flexibility is a problem, you can do a snatch, you can do a hang snatch. I've done that with many people. The issue is the premise is it is a quick lift. So the bar speed is fast. Yes, you can break it down and create a slower progression model. That's how you teach it, right? But there's just this fear. Again, it's a different kind of fear. It's not like a heavy deadlift or squat where there's 2, 3, 4 plates on the bar. It's I've got to move this 40 kilos rapidly. And for most people who are into strength training, who are those type A scared hypochondriacs who are a bit timid, the thought of racking the bar really fast frightens them, when actually the faster you rack the bar, the safer it lands on your shoulders, which is kind of ironic because those people are like leaning away and doing like a slow barbell curl, which ends up by their teeth or their nose, which is kind of ironic. But again, the lift itself, the trajectory of a power clean is not the same process. Maybe we can add 2.5 kilos at first, but then we're pretty much, I go straight into microloading the minute there's any sort of problems. And, it's all about frequency. If you can power clean every session. So one of the articles that Rips talked about is doing power cleans in your warm-ups for deadlifts. So even if you're just doing the program, which is squat, press, deadlift, squat, bench, deadlift, before you do your deadlifts, you're just going to do a couple of sets of 3 with empty bar. And then you're going to work up to whatever that is, add 5 kilos, add 5 kilos. Once you get to a challenging triple, then you just keep the bar on the floor and then go straight into your deadlifts. I've found the exposure, just making someone power clean 2-3 times a week, instantly improves technique. From frequency is nothing else, just exposure to the lift. And the other crazy thing is, you look at that person in a year from now, when they may start doing power cleans more seriously once or twice a week. Just a year of training, their power cleans improved. We've not technically done any new cue or formula to make their power clean better. But the fact that they've just done a year of power cleans, they've just got better at power cleans. And yeah, the more you avoid it, the more you're going to never get better at it. But again, it goes to just show the mindset of someone who's in that place where they're already in their mind, just like if they're scared of a heavy squat or whatever it is. It's that same mentality but manifested in a different way. You're kind of discovering people's psychology before they've even done stuff, because they're scared of a heavy bar, they're scared of a fast moving bar, they're scared of gaining weight, they're this and that. So it's like there's every concoction of excuse maker, and it's just one of them things that just manifests the easiest, because coaches avoid the lift, and that bias can move to clients as well. And it's sad, because if you've done your history, Mark Ripito, one of his mentors was Bill Starr, and Bill Starr was an Olympic lifter, and it was part of Bill's program, Strongest Shall Survive, and it's part of this program. It's a heritage lift. It is, when it comes to the history of barbells, the clean is a staple lift, because like what Jack said about training within COVID, we didn't have squat racks. Squat racks were a new invention. So doing anything, you had to clean it first. So you're missing out on a part of barbell training, which is, it goes beyond just doing, I'm skipping the lift and avoiding rows. You're kind of disrespecting the barbell's history as well.
I think the mistake people make, especially when they first start, is because it's difficult to learn, it's light. And because it's light, people don't see any point. Like, oh, well, on Friday, I'm going to deadlift 170 for a set of 5. And here I am flapping around with 30 kilos on this stupid barbell trying to learn how to power clean. What's the point of that? The point is that you get better at it. All right? Like, you're not going to stay on 30 kilos forever, just the same way that you didn't start deadlifting 170. You probably started with 60, like everybody does, and you worked up from there once you learned how to pull properly. The same process applies to the power cleans. And it's funny because people get this like goldfish memory about it. They're like, well, I've been established in my LP now for 2 months. I've basically mastered all of these lifts. Why can't I just nail the power clean and immediately start adding weight to it? It's like, have some patience, have a little humility there. It's a difficult thing to learn. It's going to be light at the start, and that is okay, because you will get better at it. What you said there, Carl, about using the power clean as a deadlift warm-up, I think is a great strategy. I think that frequency is really good. I do that as well. When I bring it in, I have people power clean 3 times a week. And, the light day, then whatever, the higher volume, but before their deadlifts on the other 2 days, we'll get a couple sets of power cleans in. It's just good practice, I think. And just like you said, you keep doing that for a couple of weeks, and suddenly the weight has built up. It's respectable now. It's actually an effort on their part, and the reps are looking quite tidy. Just have a little patience with yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace, and just commit to doing the power clean, and you will get better at it in just the same way as you got better at everything else. I guarantee that most of you listening, when you started doing the press, when you started doing the hip movement in the press, that thing felt awkward. It was awkward and difficult, and you probably didn't get the timing quite right. No one gives up on the press like that, because they know that they'll get there eventually. The power clean is the same way. Don't just skip it because it's awkward or it's difficult or you don't see the point. Pussy.
There's different buy-in, and so even now I have to remind myself, even if it's a light power clean, and I've got power cleans in the program, and I know that it's 10-15 kilos lighter than my best triple, even in those moments I'm making an appreciation of, okay, I know this is a light power clean, but I'm really going to focus on my hook grip, because I know down the line I want to have a strong hook grip for the deadlift. I really want to make sure I'm pushing into the floor and staying over the bar in the first part of the power clean. I know that transfers to the deadlift. I want to keep my hips high when I power clean, which not every coach is going to teach you who's not a starting strength coach, which I agree with Jack. A lot of people are going to be taught, if they're not taught by a starting strength coach and you ask them to teach the Olympic lifts, they're going to teach you with low hips. So pulling with high hips, pulling in shoes, using a hook grip, staying over the bar. All of those are deadlift mechanic issues that I want to have set for deadlifting. Right, that still has value to my training now. So even on light power cleans, that training still has value to your deadlift. But again, yes, there's the element of speed and technique and precision and all of that stuff. But there is a lot more that is going to bear fruit to actually improve your deadlift with all the things I mentioned that again get swept under the rug. And you're just going to make excuses that I'll just skip that, do rows, arms, and some lat pull down and call it a day. And it's like, well, that's your loss. And even, which really pissed me off, Dan Green was on Dave Tate's podcast. He said that he's come across quite a few starting strength advocates. I've met Dan Green and I didn't fucking tell him this, so I don't know who's been telling him this, but he said that people have come up to him and they're big advocates of starting strength. And he says it's kind of ironic because he never sees them power clean. And that's a bad place to be for someone else who's a powerlifter who used to do power cleans himself because he used to do cheerleading. So he used to do that stuff to help his training for that. To me, it's heartbreaking to have that put in the same sentence, that people who are starting strength skip the power clean. It's like, well, who the fuck told you to be the head chef, right? How are you making a recipe and you're changing the recipe before you've even made it? You didn't do the program. So how the fuck are you gonna all of a sudden have this superior knowledge that the power clean isn't necessary? You've never done it. You've never pushed it. Just like all the other lifts, like what you just said, everyone's gonna push and grind on a heavy press and a squat, and that they're going to buy into that, believe that that's strength training. It's like, yeah, so's the power clean, right? And a good goal is to deadlift 40%, maybe even 50% of your deadlift. If it's not, it's an underweight power clean. So those people who don't have 40-50% of their deadlift on the power clean, you're fucking up. You're missing out on a big void of your training.
Well, I think so much of what we've covered today with the loading and the mindset and the diet and the programming and the exercise selection could really be boiled down to trust that Rip knows more than you and do the program as it's written.
Yes.
Follow the sets and reps, follow the schedule, do the exercises the way we want you to do the exercises. Eat what we tell you to eat, sleep when we tell you to sleep, and you will get strong. And that's pretty much the long and short of it, as far as I'm concerned. Would you have anything to add to that?
That's great.
I think that's there. I think we beat the devil out of it on this one.
I'm sure some of you out there will, find interesting and unique ways to screw up your novice linear progression. And when you do that, please let us know so we can tell you off about it. Otherwise, this has been the British Strength Podcast. Byron Johnston, how can people get a hold of you if they would be interested in some of your coaching and or wisdom?
Yeah, sure. Just reach out to me. I'm at strengthrevolution.org. You can drop me a message through there. The social media's Strength Revolution Coaching.
Big Carl Ragavan.
BeautifulStrengthGym.com is my website. Beautiful Strength Gym on all those social media channels, your faves. So check me out there, Beautiful Strength Gym.
Beautiful. My website is castironstrength.co.uk. My Instagram is Jack_castironstrength. And if you want to get the best out of your novice linear progression, you should have a coach to guide you through it. I would humbly suggest that 3 great options for coaching sit before you right now. So do reach out to one of us if you need any help whatsoever. This has been the British Strength Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next time.